Hi, I'm Nathan. You're about to listen to a show of humor, analysis, and discovery. Welcome to the Wad Fam Chalk Pod.
Hello and welcome to the Wad Fam Chalk Pod. I'm Dylan Weaver.
And I'm Andrew Sabo.
And we are here to talk about Connie.
Connie.
Part 1.
Connie. Oh, Connie.
It's the beginning of the end.
Yes. On episode 50 out of 900.
Of our coverage of this.
Of Connie's conversion.
Yeah.
Yes. The 12-step plan of all church communities.
Oh, man. So yeah, it's an episode. It first aired December 3rd of 1988. It's written by Paul McCusker, directed by McCusker and Steve Harris, who was one of the originators of Odyssey. Mm-hmm. Hadn't directed episodes for, I don't know, a while. Came back and co-directed this one and the next one, and then it's never credited again.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder if it was he's important, we need to make sure they do the conversion part of this right,
maybe it was just a nod to, hey, you want to come back and do the thing you started.
Okay,
that's fair. The classic, I don't know, people coming back to, what is it? I feel like that was a thing in television for a while. It was showrunners who went away then came back for the finale of the show or whatever. So I'm guessing there's a little bit of that. But yeah, and then only two characters that we haven't interacted with in this episode. We have Audrey Nelson, who is the woman who sits next to her on the bus. Mm-hmm. And then we have Girl, who is the girl who sits next to her on the bus. And Audrey Nelson is voiced by Joan Gerber. She is an actress who's been in 15 episodes of Odyssey, and we have covered 10 of them.
I was gonna say we've said her name plenty of times.
We've said her name so many times, but it's not like she's in that many episodes. We just keep stumbling into them. She's in so much of the Barkley family stuff, and has been in a lot of this Connie stuff, and it's just very funny to me.
So maybe that's what we actually like about this is Joan Gerber.
Yeah, maybe. So yeah, I feel like I don't know what the other 5 episodes are, but maybe we should just do that after this. Just be we're gonna pick up. So listen to all the Joan Gerber episodes in a arc that people will totally understand
they will
online.
Happily get behind.
Yeah, we're just doing the Gerber arc,
It makes the most logical sense following Connie's arc.
Right, no, I agree. And then Kara Stook is the girl. Mm-hmm. The girl going from Des Moines to Detroit. And she's been in other episodes, none that we've covered. Doesn't really exist outside Odyssey. So that's that's it as far as cast goes for this episode. But we do have a very special first appearance, and I think we need to talk about that.
Yes, we do.
Who's in this episode, Andrew?
Mr. Coke Bottle Glasses himself, Eugene Meltzner, is present and accounted for in this episode. What, 51? 51, yeah.
Shoot, I thought his name was Hubert Meltston.
It's my favorite dinosaur.
Oh man. But yeah, this is the debut of Eugene.
Mm-hmm. And it's quite the powerful introduction that we'll get into. Once we start our coverage.
Yeah. The official guide, talks about this in, from a couple different angles. They were looking to expand the cast again because at this point Harley is out. Mm-hmm. And so this is Phil Lawler writing, but he's after we lost our comic character, we needed a new comic foil, so we brought in Eugene Meltzner. He was inspired by a listener who wrote in suggesting that they write create a character like her dad, brilliant but always losing his keys. which is just a funny thing to imagine a child writing in and being like, "Can you guys make a character after my dad? The only things I know about him is he's smart and he loses his keys
all the time."
And they were like, "You know what? That actually sounds like a great idea. Let's do that and make him one of our core characters."
Yep. Let's make him the most important.
But there's I think it's a special feature on the Heroes album, which I had on CD, talking about this from the Gold Audio series. So that, while this is the first time I'm reading that out of the guide, I have heard that, like,
Eugene was based off of
I can
the
hear
dad.
McCusker saying those lines.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
But yeah, and so that was the birth of Eugene Meltzner.
Yeah.
And he is
Rest in peace.
yeah, he's named after McCusker was reading a magazine, and two of the editors were named. One had the name Eugene, one had Meltzner, and he was like, done. Which,
Easy
fair.
game.
And it's a good nerd name.
No, yeah, it's a
Like,
great nerd
like it
name.
suits him really well.
And it sounds real, obviously, which is important.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, it's... Ugh.
Right. Like, they didn't call him, like, Smart Man Big Glasses.
Yeah,
So, like,
yeah.
there's nerd names that
Dexter
don't work.
McPocket Protector.
Right. Yes. But yeah, and yeah, there's a quote here from Steve Harris, who we just talked about as having co-directed these episodes, and he says, "My biggest disappointment about losing Officer Harley was the prospect of losing Will. He was just too talented and too much fun to work with to let slip away."
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense, because, I mean, he's such a ham as Officer Harley. Like, he does a great job with that. But especially covering this earlier episodes, hearing his voice pop in and out for tangential characters, like, he's a really good voice actor.
Yeah.
And they weren't idiots. They knew that. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that they appreciated having him around and recognized that, like, oh no, we actually got to lock this boy down. Otherwise, he's going to go someplace else.
Yeah. And the quote here goes on to be like, just talking about Will Ryan and how much he inspired Eugene's character. Like, the precise grammar is a Will Ryan thing. The playing a ukulele is such a Will Ryan thing that almost seems at odds with Eugene, but is then like a fun thing they get to do down the road.
Yeah.
And is, so great.
Will Ryan's super fast and quippy with his humor in the show, and I think that Eugene's intelligence lends itself really well to that. That's why it's like, well, actually, how do you do? How do you fare? All that good stuff.
Yeah, it's so, it's such a good, and like, them losing Officer Harley might be the best thing that ever happened to the show.
Yeah.
Because, like, they wouldn't have been pushed to create this character otherwise. And I think
there was no way that they could have done what they do.
It makes so much more sense to have essentially your third lead, like, out of your, like, triumvirate of characters. It makes so much more sense to have one of them be like this nerdy college student, not a Christian, figuring things out. Like, Eugene is not comic relief in the way that, like, Wooten is, but he is a character that is funny.
Well, and also contrasts so greatly from the environment that he's in, especially in his pre-Christian days.
Right, he's perfect, like, fish out of water.
Yeah, contrarian, kind of.
In the same way where, like, they tried to do it with Connie, of being like, well, she's all California, and now she's in a small town. But I don't think that connects to quite the same way Eugene does. And I'm just like, it would be It would be such a different show if they like continued on with like it being like a Connie and Wit two-hander with then Harley and Tom as supporting.
Yeah.
Which is basically what we get in these early episodes. It's like those are the 4 cast members they had from like the beginning of Odyssey, and they like leaned very heavily on Wit and Connie, and the others were just kind of filled out the background.
Yeah.
And it's like by losing Harley, then we get Eugene, who becomes like this foreground character and really like rounds out the cast.
Yeah, well, and he rounds out the cast in such a way that he, like you said, he's a foil. He's the opposite of Wit. Like, he's providing a flavor that is not present. Like, his humor is entirely unique, obviously, and his flavor is not present elsewhere in the show. Like,
Yeah.
there's kind of a sense of, like, we've got the Odysseans, you know, the people that grew up in the town and everything that, adhere to the culture. And then we've got Connie. And just having the one outsider for what they wanted to do with the outsider, which is make her an insider, it makes sense that they would, want to throw Eugene in there so that part of the show doesn't just go away as soon as Connie becomes a Christian.
Right, which is so obvious just in the fact that he's introduced in these episodes.
Yeah.
But I think in the component you said he's a good foil to Wit, but like he's also a great foil to Connie. Like they get to both, like, we have Wit as our father figure because neither of us have dads, which is wild when you zoom out and think about that. But then we get to have like sibling banter.
Yeah.
And as people who are relatively close in age at this point in the show, that gap grows with time. But at least at this point, Eugene is a student who got into college very young, and Connie is like mid to late high school.
Yeah.
So if she's 15, he's probably 16. Like they are very much playing it as these two people are in like slightly different life stages, but are similar in age. As time goes on, that gap really grows.
Who does it?
But like, I think that's the intention at this point, at least. He gets to be a foil to Wit, and he is like the science to Wit's faith, and he's a foil to Connie in that he is like the logic to Connie's emotion. And then he also like is a foil to Tom in that he's like, the sophistication to Tom's like
simplicity,
hometowniness. And then later when Bernard comes in, plays that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they do. Will Ryan really doing the most.
Right. Like it's such a testament to what Will can bring to the table with this character, and the fact that that he's introduced here in episode 50 and we haven't heard the end of him, that he has seasons away from the show, like we talked about for basically all of Novacom.
Yeah,
but that his presence is felt in spite of that. Like it's
because he's like one of the most important core characters. Like you would think that at that point when they get rid of him, or he's off the show, that they're either gonna kill him off or they've got to write him off, because he's so ingrained in that by that point in the show, like his role within the town and within the show, kind of playing off other people.
It'll be interesting to see how his story is or isn't brought to a close here over the next few years.
Yeah.
Which is, so
apprehensive tough at best about that.
No, I'm not looking forward to it in any regard. But
Hoobler. Oh, Kathy Buchanan, please come through. Give him the justice he deserves. Do we have a promo for this episode, Dylan?
We do have a promo, and I think it's time to roll it.
Roll it.
Coming up in the next adventure in Odyssey, Connie Kendall leaves town to go back to California and begins a journey that will change her life forever.
Now that school is let out for the holidays, Mom said it's okay to go to California to see my dad.
Oh, that's great.
Plus 23 to Los Angeles.
Mom, I'm going. I'm really going.
That's next time on Adventures in Odyssey.
Gorgeous. Love the music. Love it all.
Yeah. It's such a casual promo. Mm-hmm. And like I did
For what's happening.
Well, and like so it's a split promo. So there is this one, and then there is a separate promo for 52.
Oh, nice.
Like for part 2 of Connie. And I think that one will maybe lean into the like drama of it all. Whereas this one's more
Connie is at a crossroads.
Yeah. Yeah. But still fun. It just like it feels like summer.
Yes.
Which is
love.
so funny because this is an episode that
Takes place at holidays?
Correct.
Christmas? There's presents?
correct. So like we open up on like Connie is going to California for Christmas. Mm-hmm. And it was just that reminder of like, oh right, like this first year of Odyssey follows a calendar.
Yeah.
Because like we do the Halloween episode at Halloween. Mm-hmm. We do the election episode, like a single vote for the election. Mm-hmm. We do Thanksgiving for Thanksgiving. Yeah. And now like we're hitting Christmas break and we're doing Christmas break stuff.
If only they could continue such wonders.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense as, like, the production times stretched out, that just didn't make sense anymore. I'm fine if it's not I don't need the show to be a one-to-one with the time of year.
No.
But I wish it could keep, I wish it had, like, a timeline.
Yeah.
Like...
We're not getting a timeline.
No, we're not. But I'm just like, when I compare it to the oft-mentioned Young Justice, which like has a beautiful timeline that goes from the creation of the universe until like well past modern day, like, and doesn't contradict itself. I'm just like, man, like, show people can do this.
Yeah. Just not ours.
Yeah, not this show, and there's grace for that.
Certainly. So Connie, obviously, as we talked about, she's been back and forth about going to California and whatnot, but she finally gets her mom to agree to it. So it was like on a Monday, her mom finally caved, and then so she runs in to Whit's End and is like, well, so my mom said that I can actually go to California because I've been really wanting to, and all I need is the time off. And Whit's like, so you already are gonna go, you're just waiting for me to give you the time off. And she's like, well, yeah. And he's like, well, yeah, you can go, I'll just find a replacement.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that, Dylan? I understand the need.
I do understand the need. I don't know. I'm mixed on Whit in this moment where I'm like, he does a good job of not being disparaging to Connie's face. Mm-hmm. And then later, like, he talks through stuff with Tom. Yeah. And talks about his concerns. But he does a good job of just kind of throwing his support behind her in this moment. Mm-hmm. That then, then does become a little bit odd when he makes, like, the help thing.
Yeah, like, all the work we've done so far could be undone.
Well, no, but I mean, that's later. That's not to Connie's face.
Yeah.
I'm saying the thing that is to her face is the like, oh, I gotta hire someone. But I'm like, but I get it.
It's a business,
right.
And... Yeah.
It's a business, it's busy, it's ridiculous that Whit did it on his own for so long. Mm-hmm. And, it's not... Yeah, he makes it clear that he's not replacing her. Mm-hmm. Or he's like, well, that's up to you. Like, if you don't come back, I guess this is permanent. But, like, it's not my intention. And so I'm like, it's a weird energy that I guess he didn't have to bring into this conversation. But I'm not, like...
I'm not
doesn't,
mad at it.
Well, it doesn't feel like an act of, like, passive aggression to me.
Yeah, like, oh, you're leaving. Well, I'm going to push you away. Now you're
Right,
leaving.
which I think is such a testament to Hal Smith's performance, because I think that the writing doesn't give it that nuance.
Yeah.
But when I hear him play it, I'm like, oh, you're not doing this out of any sort of vitriol because you are a kind, jolly old man.
Yeah, you're just an ice cream shop owner who knows that Christmas time is going to be a bit crazy.
Yeah, well, because nothing says Christmas like ice cream.
Amen. That's what I've been saying for years. There's no other seasonal desserts that are that come to mind when you think of Christmas.
Yeah, and so Connie's gonna leave, and Whit, so she exits, and Whit goes to post a help wanted sign, and Tom strolls in and is like, help wanted? Is it getting to be too much for you and Connie? And he's like, well, getting to be too much for me. Not, Connie's off to California. He's like, what? I can't do this. I'm so sorry. I have this episode memorized.
That's fair.
I could do the entire thing.
That's okay.
And I don't want to.
No,
We're better than that.
I know.
So I am.
He's
Broad strokes, Dylan. Broad strokes. Don't quote dialogue when it's just like, hi, Tom.
But that's what it's been waiting in
For
your brain
what you
for
pay.
all these years. Yeah.
And then they have a chuckle.
Yep.
But
Yep.
yeah, Tom's point is like, wait, I thought like Connie wasn't going to California. Like, remember when she was going to go over the summer and then that tornado happened? And
Whit does the whole, oh, I didn't get that many stitches. It was no big deal. And Tom's like, it was 18, you idiot.
right. And yeah, he references kind of forgetting it. And we go into a clip show.
Yo.
Like we're going back. And this whole episode, or both parts here, but like, is so much paying off all of the or they're cashing in all the checks that they've written over the past year.
Yeah. Yes.
Sometimes in the literal thing of the tornado, or just like Whit talks about, like, he's like, Karen's death affected her more than I thought it would. And Tom's like, it affected all of us. And it's like,
cash that check.
Right. And we get stuff from Promises later in this episode. And it's just very much like they have been building all of this for so long. And this is them going like, all right, now we're putting all the chips on the table. Like,
this is where it's going to make sense for her to make this decision.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's, the Karen's death affected her more than I thought it would. It's like a child died.
Yeah.
What did you think was gonna happen?
She was just gonna be complete. It's gonna roll off the back like a raindrop on a duck. That's the play.
Yeah.
When somebody dies of cancer.
Yeah. But then this is where Whit expresses his concern about all those old friends, those old influences. And Tom, rightfully so, is like, that's God's business.
Yeah.
Like, you don't get to control her world.
Yeah.
Give that up. Release control. Like, God's got this. And it's that thing we talk about all the time, but it's just like, early Odyssey understood Whit's role so much better than modern.
Yeah. Where it's much more, I can lead you to the water, but I can't make you drink. Whereas modern Odyssey's like, I can put an AR headset on you and make you drink, but not in reality. And then you'll come back out and be real confused.
Yeah, and right. It's just, it's such a nice moment of this. And then, he's like, Tom's like, we should pray that this trip to California will be Connie's like own personal Odyssey. And I'm like, you should not use the concept of an Odyssey being like a spiritual journey in a show that that exists in a town called Odyssey, that is named Odyssey.
Yes.
That is geared towards children.
Yes.
Because I did not understand what that meant as a child. I was like, her trip to California is gonna be Odyssey. I thought they wanted her in Odyssey, not California. Like they want like California to be like Odyssey for her. What? Like it didn't. The word Odyssey
means a completely different thing here.
Only means this town when I am a child.
Yeah.
I do not know what that is as a concept outside of that.
Well, especially in album 3 or whatever, like how many times have they used the word Odyssey outside of the context? This is probably the first time.
Right, yeah, it's
Maybe it's the only time. I hope so.
I understand what the writers were doing, kind of, but I think it is a very poor choice.
Yeah. Yeah, it was kind of like a self-congratulatory type thing as opposed to like actually making sense, where it's like, oh, haha, you can put that in there, but you're missing the point of the 8 to 12-year-olds that are listening to this not understanding literally like 3,000-year-old ancient Greek mythology.
Yeah. It's a bad choice by the writers of the show, in my opinion, to refer to this trip as the concept of an Odyssey, even though like I know what they're trying to do, but it's the wrong call because it's confusing as a listener, especially a child.
Certainly. I don't think that's much of a stretch to say that that's a big word. I mean, it took me co-hosting a podcast with Odyssey in the name to consistently be able to spell it correctly.
Oh my word, yes, no, absolutely. The only reason I know how to spell that word is because of this show.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Eugene walks in.
Mm-hmm.
My notes just say, it's Eugene!
Yeah, we get that sweet, sweet bell noise, and then he walks in and waltzes up to the counter.
It's like a bell, how quaint.
Yeah. And then he's looking for John Avery Whitaker, and he says hi to Tom, and the whole how do you fare? Tom says howdy, and he goes, how do you fare? And all that, yada yada, like the Eugene over-explains.
Howdy. What is it, a cloak, or
from the English, how do you...
Right, well, so it's...
How do you do, or from the Old English, how do you fare?
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah, it is something like that. I could, if I paused long enough, I could get it, but we don't need to.
We need... What we do need is a sound button or a soundboard for the train horn that is used to open the shop. That or boat, like foghorn is what it sounds like.
Are you talking about next episode, Andrew?
No, certainly not. Well, I don't even know where that idea came from. I don't even think that's in Odyssey at all, actually.
Okay. All right. Good.
I think I was thinking about 3-2-1 Penguins.
Of
show
course.
I've famously seen before.
And so, yeah, we've just got like the weird wit struggling with his name is so bizarre.
Yeah.
But
Meltzer.
whatever.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, Eugene basically explains that like Professor Pierce, his professor at the college, suggested that he work under Wit because Wit is this like inventor guy who has like a very different like way of life, and he thought that like that might be good experience for Eugene. And honestly, good work, Mr. Professor Man.
Yeah. Does he call himself a genius?
He does.
Yeah, he says like recognized as some sort of genius or whatever.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So my big thing, my big note that I wanted to talk about for this episode was from the episodes that we've covered previously, it seemed very much like Wits End was the place where the town hung out, but it was about the town and not about Wits End. And now it feels like with Harley leaving and with Eugene coming in, it's now about Wits End, and it's about this, small kind of corner of the town where people do come to like hang out, and we've got all of this contrast in kind of a homogenous town where we've got like old and young and guy and girl and smart and ditzy and whatever. It does wonders for the show, because I don't think that they could have done as much with the characters that they had if they had stuck with the whole like, oh, we've got the ice cream shop owner and we've got the the bookstore owner, and these are the characters we're interacting with, as opposed to like there's more Wits End employees and it's more about the employees and the kids and that set like that universe.
I think that's an incredibly salient point. Well done.
Thank you.
That really solidifies something that I hadn't thought about. But like the idea that this show is in its initial conception called Odyssey USA.
Yeah.
Paints it so much more as, or even Family Portraits before that, but paints it so much more as this like it's about like the goings about in this town versus being centered on Wits End. And this is for sure the turning point. Like you're so right. And like we will get more like the imagination, like we'll get kids radio, like we'll get so much more stuff at Wits End that will only hammer that home more.
With the characters that they have that are like able to facilitate it and make it so that like, oh yeah, it makes perfect sense for the teenager who doesn't shut up to have a radio show. Like,
yeah. And then, right, he says, Eugene asks if the name is a pun.
I hate puns. And it's like, oh.
Yeah. No, Eugene would not be a fan of the Wad Fam Jackpot.
Certainly not.
A name that is a pun. To be clear.
A pun off of something that he did? Who shortens the menu?
No, that's a Jack Allen.
Oh, that's Jack Allen shortens the menu.
But there's also a moment where Tom asks if he's a foreign exchange student.
Yeah.
And Whit just chuckles.
Yeah.
And it's like, right, we got Tom. He's so folksy. And Eugene, such a nerd. Like...
literally a walking book.
And a talking one. But not salty.
No.
Yeah, then we jump to the bus. Or Connie going to get on the bus.
Yeah, she's with her mom.
Yeah, and she's just kind of... oh, no, it's not even there. It's back at the house. My word, this episode is...
early Christmas present.
Yeah.
And she's like, don't open it.
No, that's when they're at the bus station. This is just the one where Connie is... where June is trying to, like, kind of talk Connie out of this.
Yeah.
And she's like, why are you so, like, insistent upon this? And Connie's like, look, like... I've come to like being here. I like the people, but this place isn't me. I need to go back to California where I can be me. Here, everyone is trying to push something on me, and there, nobody cares, like, who I am, what I believe.
Yeah. Nobody's invested enough to try and skew me either way out there.
Yeah, and she does this sneer about, like, accepting Jesus.
Yeah.
Everyone around here wants me to.
Yeah.
Whereas back home, you know...
California, not a single person believes in God. Not one person in that whole state.
I mean, that's just fact.
That is fact. That's why Hillsong moved there and then promptly left.
Right. That's why we're looking forward to global warming, because, you know, seas will rise, the coastal elites will be disappeared, and then we can live in glorious middle America.
Amen. With waterfront property rates. That's the dream. I want beachfront property in Idaho. That's the focus dream.
Andrew, I was going to make that same joke. I was literally queuing up for I've got a beachfront I can sell you in Idaho. We should do a podcast together.
Maybe sometime. I don't know, man. No, this is yeah. It's kind of frustrating. I mean, obviously, the way that we've listened to it, it feels like, why would you be questioning this? You finally said yes. Are you really that surprised? She's actually just like leaving the next weekend. But, I guess, for 8 to 12-year-olds, they've got to recap it and whatnot. Like, oh, this is my reason for going.
Right. We need... I don't even think just for 8 to 12, but we just need Connie to be able to verbalize it, and they do a good job of making it June. And there's, like, the underlying thing, like, there's the... yeah, she... I don't know if it's this scene or a later scene, but it doesn't really matter. She talks about, like, her dad is, like, has plans if he can get away from work. And, like, this thing, which I think is also part of it for June too, is like she's like sending her daughter back to like her father, who they seem to have like an okay relationship despite being separated. Like they're
also
no longer together, they don't seem to agree on a lot of things, but it's not like she's fearing for Connie.
Yeah.
Sending her back to that, but she'd maybe rather she wasn't doing it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like you said, she's like 15 or 16. She's taking a bus across the country. So, like, obviously that would a bit of complication and stress for Connie and especially her mom. But, you know, doesn't really change anything. And Connie's still heading off for the bus. What is it called? Bus station.
Yeah. And yeah,
I feel like it's got to be a lot longer than a 2-day bus ride, but maybe it's not.
No,
maybe 2 days.
About right.
Yeah, I think
48
it takes
hours.
about 48
Yeah, absolutely.
hours.
Eugene. We jump back to Eugene, and he talks about like nicknames being terribly disrespectful, and then plots to automate all of Wit's End to make it more efficient.
Yes.
And rather than saying no, Wit just lets Eugene steamroll him.
Yeah, he just lets him run off, and he's like, "Oh well, I'll just deal with that in part 2 because we're stretching this out." That's my biggest complaint about this episode is that it's like one of the most significant episodes in Odyssey, and it's 20 minutes both parts. It's like you couldn't give me like 10 minutes more of meat and context and dialogue. Like, come on now.
Having not listened to part 2 in decades. No, not decades. I'm not that old. In a decade. I cannot speak to the pacing of these episodes and how the second one will finish because I did my homework well. And
You did your homework
ahead.
on time.
But yeah, we're then at the bus station and yeah,
This is the Christmas present.
This is the Christmas present bit, and they're waiting for Wit to come say goodbye, and he comes, and I really like that. And you know, Wit says,
"Think about the conversations" or something like that.
Yeah, or you just like promise me you'll like give this stuff some thought or whatever, and Connie's like, well, I don't make promises I can't keep. You taught me that.
Yeah.
Which is so sweet. And Wit gives her a Bible, and that's like the he gives her
Bible?
a gift.
What do you think?
Like what version?
Yeah, what version? What color? Like, is it a
mean,
study
like,
Bible?
I don't think study Bible. I think it's like an old school. I think we're probably like leather bound.
Yeah, that
her
was my
name
thought, yeah.
is like embossed on the cover.
Gold letters for sure.
I'm kind of thinking. I don't know. Part of me goes like, is it like KJV?
No,
Like,
I was thinking NKJV. I was thinking like,
you know what? I think that's probably the play. You're right.
maybe
You're
it's
right.
like slightly
You're right.
poetic.
Yep. Wit does seem
Artsy
like
fartsy.
NKJV is.
I think Wit's an
appropriate choice.
ESV man.
I think he is now. I don't
Or,
think in
NASB.
1988
True.
that would be his thing. That's where I'm like, okay, I can't see Wit with an NIV, so NKJV does make a lot of sense.
For sure. I think
like it.
yeah. And of course he knows how to read Hebrew, so
Right, of course.
he's got his he's got that next to him as well.
Yeah. And Connie's like, I don't have a gift for you.
But I can give you a hug.
Yeah, and I'm just like,
Hugs are good gifts.
A nice hug from Hal Smith is so lovely.
Yeah, it sounds real nice.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, and then we're on the bus.
Yeah,
she
sets off on her
races
journey.
off. And when she's sitting down next to an unnamed girl comes in and sits down next to her who just has disdain for everything.
yes, it would appear so. She just kind of hates life and then targets that at Connie and specifically the gift she just received.
Yeah, and she is defending she's reading the Bible and this girl is asking her about that in just kind of a like, I'm not really asking, I'm just kind of like blowing through and like spouting off my own frustrations and whatnot, which then puts Connie in this place where like she winds up defending it a bit, which I have for sure been in the position of like, I mean, I think we all do it, but like
Yeah.
defending a position you don't necessarily agree with, but because the other person is so dismissive of it that you're like, well, no.
Well,
like,
now-
like there is value to people I love have this stance,
Yeah.
even if I don't.
Exactly.
So like, I do need to like, I feel like a bit of a duty to like, yeah,
to those relationships, to those people, to, you know, represent their values in a way. And
Yeah.
it's true, because she comes in, she's like, oh, you know, religious types and blah, 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 Christian. Like, all of the attitude is put on those, you know, hot button words.
Yep.
And Connie's like, well, no, I mean, not really, but I don't know. I mean, it's just a real nice guy gave it to me. And
Yeah.
like,
Yep. And yeah, and then right, we do a flashback to Promises with Wit saying the whole like, you know, you think everyone's a good person.
yeah.
But you know, all have sinned and fallen short. And
They're treating the symptoms without treating the disease.
yeah, but ignoring the disease. Yep. And the girl just kind of ends it on, well, you're entitled to think what you want. It's a free country.
You're entitled to buy AR-15s if you want. It's a free country. Sigh.
Thanks for that, bummer, Andrew.
Sorry, man.
No, I mean, you're absolutely right. But in this instance, the person saying it's a free country is like
Is the antagonist.
Right.
Yeah. She's not sticking up for rights. She's oppressing religion, clearly. Next
yeah.
So then she leaves, which is weird, because she's not sitting next to Connie. She just kind of like sticks her head in and is like, "Was that a Bible?
Well,
you a Christian? You weirdo? I'm gonna go sit down."
She's looking for a place to sit down because the guy next to her is like snoring or something.
Oh, that's right.
And so she sits down, and then like kind of when like that conversation ends, she's just kind of like, on to the next person.
Yeah.
And then Connie's asleep and wakes up to be next to Mrs. Nelson.
Who sounds delightful. by the
Mrs.
way.
Nelson. Joan Gerber once again. And
God bless.
yeah, just lovely. And yeah, and she's talking about coming back, like she's coming back from a funeral in Chicago. You know, her sister, I believe, who was married to a pastor, and you know, passed away from some heart conditions. And yeah, and then Connie starts talking about like, oh, I knew like a girl like that once, who thought that way, felt those things, and also died. And I genuinely, like, Connie talking about Karen almost made me cry.
Yeah. Well, especially in this context where it's like we haven't really gotten to hear much of her perspective other than a few like kind of short explosive conversations, and two, like, you know, as the listener having just heard Karen, like we know that this is a big thing. So to hear it come out, yeah, it's really emotional. You're like, oh, okay, there's a lot going on here.
Yeah.
Where, you know, Wit and Tom were correct in that assessment that she's really carrying a lot of.
Yeah. And then Connie has this moment where she's like, hey, you know, you remind me of like the people back home. Well, but I think it's such brilliant, subtle writing of Connie referring to Odyssey as home as she goes towards California.
Yeah. I didn't ever picked up on that. That is smart.
Right, like it's just
that's beautiful.
It's very good. It kind of like it plants this thing of like, even before the events of part 2, like, this is home. Like, finally where I belong. Where I belong. Yes, this is home.
Speaking of Prince Caspian. Oh, goodness.
But yeah, just this idea that like she subconsciously recognizes that like Odyssey is where her heart lies now and not California, even though she's not going to reach that conclusion for a little while longer. And it's just like, yeah, it's such this like sweet little moment that they don't draw attention to, and I really love. And she's like, you don't happen to know, John Whitaker in Odyssey, because I could just see him working it out for you to sit next to me. And Mrs. Nelson's like, well, it wasn't your Mr. Whitaker who did this, it was God. And I say, is there a difference?
Yeah.
But
not in this show.
But like, yeah. And then and then Mrs. Nelson's just like, God loves you, Connie. And I hope you're able to see that.
Yeah, and what did she say? Like, God loves you, Connie, and I think he's put people in your life to show you that. Yeah. Which is really good and beautiful, and I think that, like, as the mixed feelings I have about kind of what conversion looks like in evangelicalism, where it's just kind of like we'll make the decision the one time and whatever.
Yes.
But like this shows a lot more of that subtlety and the building of just, no, Wit wasn't really preaching at her in any of those moments, and that's why she likes Wit. And so in this moment, like, she is primed to believe that, like, oh no, maybe he was just being nice because there was somebody nice in charge of him doing that, and maybe that is all that it's cracked up to be by these weirdos.
Yeah. And then we go out on the note of Harlow Doyle driving the bus.
Saying that they've arrived in sunny Los Angeles, and I would give you a hot towel, but we'd crash the bus. Laughs like Bert.
It's not the hot towel. He says, I can't feel my legs, but if I get up, we'll crash.
Oh, I thought he said I'd give you a hot
there
towel.
Might be something about a hot towel, but the we'll crash line is I can't feel my legs, but if I get up, we'll crash. Like, it is. Yeah, it's Will Ryan doing the exact character that he does for Harlow Doyle. It's even written like a Harlow
joke.
It's very funny, and I enjoy it. And I like this idea that before he became a private eye, he
bus
drove
driver.
Connie to California.
Amen. Well, he had to do something in his in-between time,
Yeah. But yeah,
that's part one.
That's it.
19 minutes, short and sweet.
Mm-hmm. The way God intended it.
Amen.
It's a good episode.
It really is.
And we'll talk more about, like, greater implications, I think, at the end of the next one. Because we can really put a button in on the whole Connie thing. But I would just say, like, this episode builds it in a very good way. And I really enjoy them paying off all this stuff that they've been building to over a year.
Well, and I honestly don't think that I ever fully understood how difficult going from album 1 to 3 versus album like 4 to 20 was, as far as like translating characters and plot points and locations and everything.
Sure.
How much they figured out about what the show was going to look like, what the show was going to be about, and also like I said, shifting that dynamic from the whole like Simpsons-esque, looking at a town from bird's eye to like, no, this is a corner of a small town that with some people that we really care about in a place where it makes sense.
Right. Yeah. It's such an accomplishment of the show to like have found its footing over the, not that there weren't missteps and don't continue to be missteps, but like where it gets from Connie Comes to Town episode 3,
like Wit's flop, like
where it gets to now, and just being able to track that has been really, really fun, and definitely given me a different perspective on the show that I have.
I think it just gives me a greater appreciation from the era of the show that I like so much, which is, probably in that like album 10 to album 50 or, somewhere in there. that range, like how much work they did that was well executed to translate those characters and that kind of cohesiveness over.
Yeah.
That being said, we will be back to talk about part 2
Yeah.
next week.
But before we do that, Andrew,
Oh.
I've got some announcements and things.
Ooh.
So one, you can we'll put a link in the show notes, but the two of us were on an episode of Adventures in Ideology.
Oh, it's out now.
It's out.
Woohoo! I gotta listen to that.
Yeah. And so yeah, that came out a little while ago, and we can we'll link to it. We went on there after they were on our episode on choices. We went over and returned the favor to talk about The Night Travelers, which is the first of the video episodes. So if you've if you subscribe to our bonus feed, you got to hear us react to that live for the first time. And now, if you want to hear us with a little bit more developed thoughts, with a little bit more time behind it, and with chatting with some very fun people,
wonderful ladies,
you can go give that a listen. And then I have one other note here, which is we have a review that I'd like to read. But a little bit of an unorthodox review.
Okay.
So this comes from the podcast Chicklet. They did an episode a couple months back, and they have a segment on that show where they just talk about the stuff they've been listening to.
Okay.
And so one of the hosts, Karen, had the following to say about us. The thing I really like about their show is they're both still very much Christians, but there's a lot of not-so-subtle things I've picked up on that make me realize they're not the conservative evangelical Christian brand that I've known. And I just really appreciate their perspective. They both have a lot of wisdom for being late teens, early 20s.
Early 20s, thank you. But
But at the beginning of our show, Andrew, you were a teenager.
Oh, yeah. No, I was 18. Oh, no, 17.
So, yes.
Yeah. Wow. Thanks.
Yeah. So,
I wish I could give you a hug for saying that, honestly.
Yeah.
Is there a digital hug I can send over? Yeah. That was really sweet. Oh.
But yeah.
Love that.
So yeah, we'll go out on that note.
Yeah.
And with all that being said, we'll be back next week to talk about the last episode of Connie Year 1, episode 52, Connie, Part 2.
Bye, guys.
WadFam Chalk Pod is a presentation of the Lidditz Podcast Co-op. This show is a fan podcast and has no official affiliation with Adventures in Odyssey or Focus on the Family. As such, the copyright is ours under Creative Commons. Follow the podcast at WadFamChalkPod on Twitter and Instagram, or email us at wadfamchalkpod@gmail.com. Connie Part 1 is hosted by Dylan Weaver and Andrew Acebo, and edited by Dylan Weaver. And I'm Nathan Haverstick, hoping you'll join us again next time for more of the WadFam Chalk Pod.